Hey, you bought a gaming guru to upgrade your experience, but only to get ear-shattering gunfire, footsteps icon everywhere, and moody music playback? Don't panic, it's fixable. In this video, I'll help you dodge these pitfalls with these 16 gaming model showdown. Each model includes my custom EQ settings. Subscribe to this guide here packed with actionable tips for gaming and music. Before we start, there are two critical notes. First, whether you play FPS or AAA games, $100 is the ceiling for gaming headsets. Beyond that, you're paying for premium pricing. Why? The quality of most audiophiles in games falls short of music streaming apps. Even you get a high-end headset can't unlock hidden potential. And many gaming audio master tuning are disastrous. Brands blindly boost bass to emphasize footsteps, resulting in muddy sound and inaccurate positioning. Second, 7.1 surround sound is just kind of virtual processing and a marketing tactic. Most FPS games don't support true 7.1 output. Use it for some rhythm games. Disable it for competitive shooters. Alright, let's begin this video. Comprehensively evaluate 16 top-selling and ear gaming headsets across 4 key dimensions: gaming performance, music and movie performance, software and hardware features, and value for money. Each headset receives a detailed analysis and tiered rating. I'll also demonstrate how to optimize your device gaming, entertainment, audio using FX sound. The universal EQ tuning software, ensuring your gear delivers beyond its price. Important notes: pricing just reflects my actual purchase cost. Your local pricing may differ, as is value based on your real-world cost. For optimal understanding, refer to the visual guide highlights critical EQ adjustment points for gaming versus entertainment tuning. First, experience the difference.
Myself down to let myself down to the pot.
Alright, let's dive into the C-level headphones. C-level products don't really shine when it comes to gaming or media experiences. If you're just looking for something basic for casual gaming or kind of a background sound, these will do the job. RAZER HAMMERHEAD V3 $39.99. The Earbuds feature a direct in-ear fit and the official software drivers are included. But based on the frequency response analysis, the V3 doesn't have much low-end boost. The footsteps sounds are pretty weak, with some reverb, and the overall positioning is just barely accurate. The gunfire sounds are fairly balanced, not too sharp, but not particularly impactful either. The EQ adjustment I recommend is to boost the 300 Hz and 9000 Hz frequencies. For FPS games, I'll give it a B-. As for music performance, after testing when it comes to impacting drums, the HAMMERHEAD is currently was out of the 16 headphones, depth in the bass and clarity in vocals, the mid sounds nasal, and the texture of strings is completely lost. This headset is absolutely only suitable for FPS games. There is no need to save it for music or AAA games. Sound quality rated D-. Overall recommendation C-. PIVA S6 Pro, $34. These headphones look pretty cool with built-in light effect and sound card. However, the earbud steps are flat, and if they're not worn correctly, they can cause bass leakage, which weakens the footstep sound. Looking at the frequency curve, you can see that the S6 Pro has very little low end boost, footsteps sound weak, and the 9kHz high boost makes gunfire quite harsh on the ears. I recommend slightly boosting the low frequencies and cutting back on the highs. For gaming, I rated C-. Because of the fifth, the S6 Pro suffers from significant bass leakage with weak bass depth. The music atmosphere is almost lost and sounds a bit moody. Vocals are fairly natural, but they come across as weak and flat. The texture of strings is still missing, and there is absolutely no overtone extension. Sound quality rating C+. I suggest boosting the low end a bit and improving the clarity of the vocals. XIBERIA MG2S $66.76. The XIBERIA GM2S uses a direct in-ear fit with a shark fin design on the ear cups and an independent microphone. It boosts the 60 to 400 Hz range significantly, making the footsteps sound very dull and blurry. When it comes to gunshots, the GM2S doesn't focus on specific key frequencies, instead applying a broad gain across the entire range, which makes the gunfire sound a bit harsh. My recommendation for the optimization is not to, or somehow is to significantly cut the highs and slightly reduce the lows. For gaming, I rated C+. Music performance of the GM2S is pretty out of control. The drums have a strong impact, but they're very boomy and blurry. You can't really pick out the layers of different instruments, and the vocals sound muffled. The strings are somewhat accurate in texture, but the tone is thin. I spent about half an hour trying to calibrate the sound, and only then did I manage to find a listenable settings. Without tuning, it's almost unbearable sound. Quality rating C-. Overall recommendation C. ROG Cetra 2, $97.99. The headphones uses a direct in-ear fit, and they've sold over 100k units across the internet so far. In terms of tuning, the main focus is boosting footsteps sound while reducing gunshots volume. The game audio has significant reverb, and while footstep sounds are fairly loud, the gunshots aren't overly harsh. However, the excessive low end boost causes a lot of reverb, making footsteps sound muffled. To optimize the EQ, the focus should be on improving gain positioning with slight boosts and key frequencies points. For gaming, I'm gonna give it a B-. As for the music, the heavy low-end boost makes Cetra to overall sound pretty moody and kind of muffled. The drums have a strong impact, but the bass depth is only average. Vocals have a noticeable nasal sound, making them feel very constricted. Sibilance is well controlled, but unfortunately, there is absolutely no texture in the high frequencies. These headphones aren't suitable for listening to orchestral music. Even after EQ adjustments, it's only just kind of barely listenable. Sound quality rating C. Overall recommendation C+. B-level Earbuds work fine for FPS games in general, though a few models might occasionally make gunshots harsh to cause blurry positioning. SteelSeries Tusq, $39.99. I have to point out, though, that while the Tusq uses a direct in-ear fit, it's not very secure. It falls out easily if you're not careful, and the protruding ring design makes it feel like something in your ear. Like most gaming headsets, it focuses on boosting low frequencies for footstep sounds. But despite the single driver setup, the Tusq isn't as model as I expected actually. The positioning is still fairly accurate, though the gunfire can be slightly harsh. My suggestion will be to cut back on the highs a bit. For gaming, I rated B. As for sound quality, it's not exactly impressive. There is no depth at all, but on the plus side, the clarity is good, vocals feel distant, and while sibilance is well controlled, the vocals themselves are a bit muffled. The high frequencies and strings are dull, but the instrument separation is decent. With some EQ adjustments, you can make it sound more kind of balanced, but overall, it's kind of a bit underwhelming. Sound quality rating B-. Considering the fit issue, my overall recommendation will be actually B-. KZZS10 Pro 2, $49.49. This headset has a lot of potential. Not only does it comes with a variety of accessories in the package, but it also features a 4-step frequency switch and an integrated sound card. Personally, I think the second settings offers the best performance. The official spec claims a hybrid setup with 10 drivers, but honestly, I'm not really sure how many of them accurately active. That said, I'll give credit where it's due to. The footsteps position is definitely much more accurate, and the low-end boost is noticeable. However, because of the balanced amateur drivers, the gunshots are quite sharp. I recommend cutting the highs significantly when playing FPS games. For gaming, I rated B-. For music, the hybrid driver setup does a great job at announcing separation of the high-frequency strings. But it also brings a fair amount of tonal coloration. Its standard mode, the low end isn't very prominent, and the layering of bass instruments isn't all that distant. The drums have a bit of a dull sound, and the mid-range vocals feel somewhat constrained. On the bright side, the vocals are neutral with minimal sibilance, but there is a noticeable graininess to the sound. The toning of the balanced amateur drivers is a bit tricky, and a simple EQ adjustment won't really improve the sound. So I didn't make any EQ changes here. Sound quality rating B. Overall recommendation B. Feaulle Lian2, $49.27. The Lian2 uses an over-ear fit, and its toning leans more toward a hi-fi style. The low end is slightly boosted with a small announcement in footstep sounds. The 3000 to 5000 Hz range is lifted to further improve gunshot positioning, but it also makes the gunfire sounds a bit more aggressive. For EQ optimization, I'd suggest slightly reducing the high frequencies to tame the gunshots. For gaming, I rated B+. For music, the Lian2 has more pop vocal-oriented toning. The bass depth is more pronounced, but there is a bit of a loss in atmosphere. The drums sound slightly brittle, and the vocals feel a bit loose, lacking firmness. Sibilance is noticeable, and the high-frequency instruments sound thin. Instrument separation is average, but the rich overtones add a nice sense of resonance to the high-frequency instruments. Sound quality rating B-. Overall recommendation B. Epz G20, $47.29. The G20 features an over-ear fit and comes with an independent microphone. Looking at the frequency response, you can tell it's tuned more toward hi-fi, while the low-end boost is subtle. The footsteps sound are solid and clear. However, there is a peak sound 9 kHz with an excessive high boost. While this helps with gunshot positioning, it also makes the gunfire a bit too harsh. For EQ optimization, I recommend slightly reducing the high frequencies to tone down the gunshots. For gaming, I rated B-. In terms of music, the G20 adopts a V-shaped toning with strong low and depth, but it falls short when it comes to instrument separation. Vocals sound a bit youthful with noticeable graininess and sibilance. The highs are bright, and instrument lines are fairly thin. Unfortunately, the texture of the strings sounds a bit rough. Sound quality rating B. Overall recommendation B. JBL Quantum 50C, $94.25. Although the main body has a ring design, the silicone ear tip and overall fit have been optimized, making it surprisingly comfortable to wear. Looking at the frequency curve, the Q50C boosts the low end, and headphones strong clarity makes footstep positioning pretty accurate. Unfortunately, the 9 kHz boost is a bit too much, which makes the gunfire slightly harsh. For gaming, I rated B+. For music, the Q50C does a great and a good job with soundstage and immersion. Instrument separation is decent, and the low end offers great presence. The drums are slightly brittle but have good depth. Vocals sound a bit muffled with a bit of graininess. The highs are on the darker side, and the texture of string is smooth. I suggest increasing the transparency of the vocals. Sound quality rating B+. Overall recommendation B+. Now moving on to A-tier headsets, which perform well both in media and gaming. Though a few of them may still have some harshness, they're a good choice for a blind pick. Epz G30, $57.83. Looking at the frequency response, you can clearly see that the G30 has more low end and high frequency boost compared to the previous G20 model. In terms of gaming performance, footstep sounds are more prominent than with the G20, and the 9 kHz boost improves overall positioning accuracy. The 7 kHz that produces the harshness of gunshots. I love to see game manufacturers take notes on this one. For gaming, I give it an A+. And no EQ adjustment unnecessary. As for the music, the G30, a heavy low-end boost gives the drums a powerful impact, but if also makes them a bit boomy. The layering of instruments isn't very clear, and while sibilance is minimal, the vocals feel a bit constrained. The higher frequency instruments are fairly accurate in texture, but the strings get somewhat buried by bass and other instruments. The highs are a bit dull to improve. I suggest reducing the low and boost. Sound quality rating B. Overall recommendation A-. NF Audio NG3 Assassin's Creed, $68.99. The NG3 biggest strength is its large soundstage, providing an incredibly immersive surround experience with strong clarity. The footsteps positioning in games is quite accurate, and you can tell from the frequency curve that the tuning is more hi-fi with a bit of somewhat studio monitor vibe. However, the gunshots can be slightly harsh. The NG3 is better suited for AAA games, but the downside is that without a balanced dongle DAC, the sound can feel weak and lacking power. If you plan on using the NG3 for FPS games, I suggest slightly reducing the highs. For gaming, I rated A-. For music, the NG3 soundstage outperforms most gaming headphones, and its instrument separation is impressive. The low end is substantial, and the drums hit with a strong punch, though it lacks a bit of surround feel. Vocals are natural and smooth, with minimal sibilance, but there is a slight graininess. The texture of string is a bit dark but smooth. Sound quality rating A. The NG3 is specially suited for rhythm, games, and rock music. Overall recommendation A. And now the ROSESELSA Aurora Ultra, $43.99. And in simple terms, the Aurora Ultra is more of a hi-fi headphones, and its tuning leans heavily toward music. With solid performance in FPS games, whether it's spatial positioning or footsteps clarity, it does quite well. However, from the frequency response, you can see that to cater to music games players, the Aurora Ultra's treble, especially around the 2.5 kHz range, have been boosted. This adds brightness to the string instruments, but in FPS games, it also slightly increases the harshness of gunshots. I recommend slightly reducing the highs for a better balance. For gaming, I rated A. As for the sound quality, the dynamic driver combined with planar magnetic elements makes the instrument separation outstanding. The low end has quick rebound, giving the sound a light and airy feel. The vocals have a great cohesion and presence to balance out the high frequency gunshots. The high-end instrument's brightness is moderate, but the violent texture comes through clearly. With excellent clarity, there is a slight lack of overtone extension, but overall, no EQ adjustment are necessary. Sound quality rating A. Over recommendation A. Titan S2, $79.99. The Titan S2 also uses an over-ear fit, and it ranks among the best in terms of gaming, immersion, and clarity. Looking at the frequency curve, you can see it follows a hi-fi tuning approach, but with about a 5 dB boost in the low frequencies. This ensures the footstep sounds are clearly and strong. So there is no need to worry about that. However, there is a significant boost around 3000 Hz, which makes the gunshot slightly harsh. I still recommend reducing the highs a bit for a better balance. For gaming, I rated A. For music, even we talk about the hi-fi items, the Titan S2 stand out at its price range, comparable to the T1 in terms of performance. The low-end depth and dynamic range are excellent. Vocals have slight sibilance, but they've smooth overall. The high-frequency string texture are well reproduced, and instrument separation is superb. Overall, the musical performance doesn't need much adjustment. Sound quality rating S-. Overall recommendation A+. S-tier products may not always have the absolute best performance, but they are undoubtedly the most balanced when it comes to cost to performance ratio, media, and gaming performance. Here are two models that stand out. SONCIE MEORY SM1 Lite, $18.99. The SM1 Lite uses an over-ear fit, and it's rare to see such a good deal at this price point. And it comes with a dongle, which is a nice touch. The tuning focuses on announcing footsteps sound around 2.5 kHz range, which I think is a very smart approach. It avoids the excessive low end that can cause reverb issues while still addressing the need for gaming positioning. The highs are controlled, so the gunshots don't sound harsh. No EQ adjustments are needed. For gaming, I rated S-. For music, the SM1 Lite takes a mid to low frequency approach with strong and deep bass for pop music. The drums have a punchy impact, but there is a slight amount of sibilance and vocals. But overall, they're smooth. The string texture are well reproduced, although the overtone extension is average. Sound quality rating A+. Considering the incredible value, my overall recommendation is S-. Now, if you're using one of the D-tier headphones I mentioned, don't please take it personally. This is my subjective experience. For those who've already stepped into this dilemma, I suggest upgrading to a better pair. HyperX Cloud Earbuds 2. The genius behind the design of the Cloud Earbuds 2 clearly had some unique ideas. This open-ear style in-ear headphone is a strange choice with a very flat sound nozzle that makes it picky when it comes to fit. The seal is poor, leading to significant bass leakage and loss of extension. Footstep sounds are very weak, and the positioning is all over the place. Oddly enough, the high frequencies are boosted by almost 15 dB, making gunshots unbearably sharp. At the moment, I can't think of a good EQ adjustment to fix this. For gaming, I rated D. For music, the Cloud Earbuds 2 struggles with bass leakage, and there is no atmosphere at all for pop music. The drums sound like middle Beyonce track, and the vocals are neutral, but the female voice or the female vocals have a lot of sibilance and sound muffled. The orchestral sound has a very heavy tonal coloration. This headset is definitely not suited for music listening, and no optimization seems to fix it. Sound quality rating D. Overall recommendation D. Logitech G333, $64.99. The G333 uses a direct and ear fit, and from the frequency curve, it's clear that the low end boosts are massive, with even the vocal range being boosted. Meanwhile, the critical 7K Hz point is heavily cut, which helps reduce the harshness of gunshots but also affects position accuracy. The overall sound is very muffled and congested, making it hard to get precise game audio. For gaming, I rated C+. To optimize, I'd suggest reducing the low end and slightly boosting the highs. For music, the G333's performance is nothing short of disappointment. While low end is dominant, it lacks any real depth. The overall sound is muddy and closed in. The vocals are nasal, and the high frequencies are so distorted that you could describe the string instruments as having extreme tonal coloration. I honestly wouldn't recommend this headphone for music, and I'm not even bothering to tweak the EQ. Sound quality rating D-. Overall recommendation D. Looking at ratings and sound quality here, it's clear that many gaming-focused headphones don't offer the best sound performance. My ears have definitely taken a hit over the past few days testing these. Thanks for sticking around, and I hope this kind of video helps you make better choices when it comes to selecting a headset. See you next time.